What's up? Hey, hello everyone. Wow. So we are back. If you recognize this background, going to be talking about Survivor Season 35, Episode 13. Sorry we missed last week. Obviously, finals week was upon us. So it's been a really hectic week. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and this week is going to continue to be hectic for me because my last final isn't until this Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m., which means that your girl is going to have to, speed home so that I can watch the Survivor finale.
Yeah, so this week was the penultimate episode of Survivor Season 35. Super crazy. I'm very, very excited for the 2-hour season finale along with a reunion show this Wednesday. I am very ready for this season to bring it to a close. So I guess to start for this podcast, we'll talk a little bit about last episode since we did miss last week. Last episode was really good. I think this episode was really good as well. I think it definitely sets us up well for the final 5.
Yeah, I think that last episode and this episode were kind of parallel in structure as far as, Ben being on the bottom and then coming out on top despite being on the bottom, if that makes sense. So I feel like this was kind of like the last episode 2.0, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, definitely what we saw happen. So last episode, we saw Lauren go home. A total shock by everyone because everyone else on the tribe put Ben to go home. Ben pulls out the idol, and then he is a sole vote for Lauren to go home. And I think, that is how you play the idol, basically. And I think Ben, even though he is sort of disliked, he's definitely the most deserving person left on the cast to win the $1 million and to win the game. He has a great story. He has a great Survivor resume, and he's been playing from the bottom these past few votes. So I really, really feel like Ben is probably the most deserving player to win at this point in time. And if he isn't voted out and he is somehow able to make it to the final 3, Ben should be the winner. Hopefully, the jury isn't bitter or whatnot, but I think Ben's stock has really risen these past few episodes.
Yeah, I think if Ben makes it to the final episode, then the final tribal, he'll definitely be good. I'm not sure if he's going to make it though, just because idols expire at final 5, so even if he does find another idol immediately and then final 4, he doesn't have idols to get him out of any trouble that he might get into. So
yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle for Ben to make it to final 3. We'll see what this new twist that's happening that was in the preview for next episode. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like last episode, Ben, we see him become super paranoid when he overhears Lauren, Ashley, and Devin at the water. The water hole. I'm at a loss for words. He becomes
the well.
The well, yeah. I was like, watering hole. That's not the right word. The well. I don't know. He becomes super paranoid, and then he goes and tells Mike, Ryan, and Chrissy everything, which I was sort of like, I don't know. Nobody wants to go to the end with Ben. They realize that he's such a big threat, and he's played such a good game that no one really wants to go to the end with him. But I think last episode I was glad to see Chrissy and Ben, maybe be able to put away their differences and be able to work together in the game. But then I guess we didn't really see that happen.
You see, I have a problem with calling Ben paranoid because he was right to assume that they were talking about him because they totally were. And I feel like if he hadn't been quote unquote paranoid about that situation, then he would have gone home last episode. So I feel like paranoia is when you have no reason to believe that someone is targeting you and you still believe it. But I feel like Ben had strong enough reasons and it turned out to be true. So.
Okay, yeah. I guess paranoia isn't the right word. I feel like definitely good for Ben for realizing, maybe I should play the idol this episode or this tribal council. But also, I don't know. I think it was him telling everything about, you know, Mike, Ryan, and Chrissy to like telling all of the secrets and spilling all the beans, I feel like sort of makes it so Ben can't really work with anyone. I feel like, okay, yeah, like my alliance of Lauren, Ashley, and Devin are trying to target me, but like if you acted more casual, I guess, and not spilled all the beans, but I guess, you know, it did work in Ben's favor, but now it's like to the point that definitely no one wants to work with him, whereas before people were sort of like, maybe I don't want to work with you.
You see, I'm kind of surprised that no one wants to work with Ben, because to me, I would be like, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And it's like, if you know that Ben is the only person that can win against you, like keep him in your alliance so you know what he's going to do, and then you can cut him loose when you need to, you know?
No, 100%. And I feel like that's where we see in the episode that we're talking about this time, when we see like Ashley super butthurt about the challenge, and she's like, you know, I don't want to work with you, Ben. And Ben says something along the lines of, okay, so like you're telling me there's like 100% no chance of like us working together. And I feel like to a certain extent, like, you know, maybe be more willing to hear what other people have to say. But then Ashley does have a good point. Like, okay, Ben's at the bottom. He will just say whatever he wants to like get his way. But then that's how we see Ashley go home. That's how we see Lauren go home last time. And I think last episode with Lauren giving away her idol piece to Mike, which was like, we can talk about that. And then also not bringing her advantage to the tribal council. Lauren goes from being the most powerful person in the game with 2 like advantages to having nothing and then getting voted out with 1 vote.
Yeah, I feel like one thing is in Survivor, even if you know the person on the bottom is desperate, like sometimes a good idea comes out of that desperation, you know, especially because someone like Ashley, like she's not a bad player, but there are still people left other than Ben who could beat her at the final tribal. So it's like if Ashley had been willing to listen to Ben, then she might have gotten out like Chrissy or Ryan, who might be able to beat her at the final tribal council, and then she'd be able to turn on Ben when it was advantageous for her. So like I don't really understand the whole like, you know, they say Star Wars reference, only Sith deal in absolutes. So it's like dealing in absolutes in Survivor is only gonna get you burned, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like this season, maybe in general, people just aren't willing to work with like people at the bottom, because we see it like when the healers are all being voted out. No one wants to work with Mike and Joe and like Cole and Desi. And so like, I mean, you could have used those people, and then you could also say the argument like, you know, okay, it wasn't the right time. Like our alliance wouldn't have lasted X amount of days if we like were going to split up. But then on the other hand, I feel like people are now just bringing Mike sort of into the fold. People sort of brought Joe into the fold. But like in reality, like Joe and Mike were never part of this alliance. And even now we're seeing it. Everyone's like, okay, like Mike is just sort of here. Like he's smart, but we don't really know what he's doing because he's not in an alliance. And I feel like, I don't know, you could do better management of maybe like the people at the bottom or the people on the fucking show and be like, okay, like let's like use you people to get our way instead of just having these people on the island voting a one way or another, but like not really doing anything, I feel like.
Yeah, I thought that Ben's idea to get Mike out, like when he was still trying to get Ashley to work with him, was actually a pretty good idea, because it's like, I think I've talked about this before, but like all the swing votes that you have are unknown variables, and it's easier to solve an equation the more variables that you know. So like eliminating an unknown variable would have been good for everyone there, especially because the majority doesn't really need Mike. They already have the number.
Yeah, so like Mike is just voting the way the majority says. So, okay, yeah, like I'm safe, I'm Mike, like I'm going to make it to the next day. But like, given, I guess, final tribal council, people are like, okay, Mike's really smart. He's been playing from the bottom the entire time. He hasn't like pissed anyone off. But then for Mike himself, what can he say that was his move? Like, what did he do that was solely him? Because I feel like for Mike, definitely, and sort of Ashley, we sort of see like they're just sort of riding the coattails of other people. Like, okay, Devin told me about this plan, I'll vote this way because it's a good plan. Like, but Devin was the one to think of it. And like at this tribal council for this episode, we see Ben trying to call out Devin, like, what's on your Survivor resume? And I feel like for people like sort of like Mike and Ashley, they don't really have that many big moves on their resume.
Yeah, I think that there are some cases where an argument can be made that like just surviving is enough of a resume. But I feel like that's more like if you're consistently targeted and you still manage to get there despite being targeted. Whereas like just surviving for Mike isn't that big of a deal because like he's never really been the one to he's never been like the one everyone was gunning for.
Yeah, and I think like at a final tribal council for someone like Mike to be like, okay, you know, like I'm out of my element, like I've never like camped before, so like Ryan could sort of say the same thing, like blah blah blah, like I'm a fan and like I just came off the couch and like I've never made a fire kind of thing, and like do that personal growth story. I think, you know, like yeah, like it's worked in the past with Survivor seasons, but I really like I wouldn't want to give $1 million to someone who has like a personal growth story of like blah blah blah, like I'm so happy to be here, I'm just proud that I made it this far, and like that kind of stuff. I want to see like concrete kind of examples of what you did on the show, because okay, sure, like you had this experience and like it changed you, and that's what everyone says in their Ponderosa, but like what did you do?
Yeah, and I think that it's really important to keep in mind, like, it's great that Survivor changed you, but that's not the reason you played the game in the first place. So.
Yeah, so I think last episode we see Ben have a really great idol play. Lauren goes out with just one vote. Ben is the only person to vote for her. And I don't know, I was happy Lauren lasted this long. I thought she would have been like the third person out, so second person off of the Hustler tribe after Simone. So I was glad, you know, she made it this long, because I feel like as an older woman, people usually don't really expect them to make it far in Survivor. So I was really happy that Lauren made it this far. And she's like a decent Survivor player too.
Yeah, like Lauren's one of those people where like if she were to be brought back, no one would be like, why are they bringing Lauren back? Or at least I don't think that anyone would be like that.
Yeah, so that was sort of last episode. Going into this episode, it's a lot about Ben. I feel like this episode, it really sets up Ben well for either a final 3 win or like a 4th place loss. And then I feel like Ben could be brought back for another season, because like he does have an interesting character. He sort of like was a hero with the sort of King Arthur thing, who turned sort of villainous and unliked by people. So I think it's really interesting, like his Survivor story. And if he made it to final tribal council, he would definitely have a lot to talk about, and I think he's definitely deserving, and it's very warranted. He finds another freaking idol this episode, which like we see 3 idol searching scenes throughout the episode, so you're sort of like, huh, I think it's going to happen, because we keep like seeing it occur. And the people on the island, they notice Ben's gone, and they know he's looking for the idol. Numerous times we've seen confessionals of them like, oh, Ben's looking for the idol, I hope he doesn't get it because we want to vote him out. And then I'm like, why are y'all like dumbasses? Why don't you follow him around if you want to 100% guarantee you don't want him to find the idol? Because then look what you let him do. You let him find the idol. Like, just don't give him the opportunity to find it if you don't want him to find it.
Bro, I'm in 2 Survivor fan groups on Facebook, and there was this one discussion. There was this whole conspiracy theory about how Ben didn't actually find the idol, and like production gave it to him, and all the like confessionals and stuff were shot after the tribal council to like make it realistic that Ben got the idol. And I was just like, guys, I just think it's silly when people like don't like the way something happens in Survivor, and then they like make up this whole story surrounding it just because they don't like it.
Yeah, and if like Ben is searching for the idol like night and day, waking up like always, it seemed like looking for it, and then versus Mike is like, oh my god, I searched the camp and I don't see it here, so it must not be here, guys, like we don't need to look. and we're like, we don't need to follow Ben. And I'm like, you don't know 100%. Like, the places you looked, Mike, might not be the places where the idol is hidden, and that's why you didn't find it. So, like, to cover all your bases and to be 100% safe, stick someone on Ben and to follow him around. Like, it doesn't make sense to let the person who is the biggest threat in the game, has found an idol before, so like knows where to look, and is the person you want to go home and will probably all lose to at the end, find another idol. So like, it's your own fault, everyone on the island right now. If you lose to Ben, it's your own fault because you keep letting him slip through the cracks.
Yeah, I just think it's so silly because it's like, you know that he's found an idol before, and you know that there's, like, to me, there's just such a disconnect, especially because they do stand around talking about how they hope that he doesn't find the idol. And it's like, they want someone else to go babysit him, but also, like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it didn't. I was just sort of annoyed. I'm like, you all are complaining and like hoping, like, oh, we don't want Ben to win immunity. We don't want Ashley to win immunity. We don't want Ben to find the idol, blah, blah, blah. But then you don't do anything really to prevent these things from happening in like any sense. So we see Ben in like the final scene before tribal council. He finds like the idol clue and it's under the campsite, but then we don't see him like ever get the idol from under the campsite, which I was sort of bummed about. Like, I think that'd be cool to see how he got it because everyone seemed like they were at camp. The sun was setting. But yeah, I don't know. I guess now in like Survivor, you should always check under the campsite because this is like the second time that an idol under your bedding has occurred. So then you wouldn't need to find a clue.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons they might not have shown the idol is because then it would like eliminate all sort of suspense. Like, it would just
Yeah.
be like, oh, Ben decides he's going home. Just because finding an idol that last minute also makes it really difficult for your opponents to like decide what to do. But yeah, obviously they already had a plan B, but if they hadn't had a plan B and Ben had pulled out that idol last minute, that would have been disastrous.
Yeah, so I don't know, Ben like deserves to win the game, even though like sort of in the past few episodes Alyssa and I have been like not really liking towards Ben. Like, honestly, like from sort of like a viewpoint of like a game of the player, like I think Ben deserves to win. Like, out of everyone left, I think if Ben doesn't get voted out before final 3 or final tribal council, like Ben deserves it the most.
Yeah, I think that Ben is also, I wouldn't say he's the best at jury management, but I think that he was good enough at jury management that it's not going to totally screw him. Like, a lot of the times when people have exited, like, he'll hug them or shake their hand or whatever. And I noticed he did it with Ashley, and it's like Ashley wouldn't even say goodbye to Devin, but she said goodbye to Ben, who was up until that point not in her alliance. So I thought that was interesting as far as like from a jury management standpoint.
Yeah, I think like from what we've been sort of seeing in like Ponderosa, a lot of the people don't seem to be super bitter. They're like, okay, this is a game. This is what happened. Like, everyone seems very friendly with each other. And I feel like if someone like Joe can get over like his dislike towards Ben and be like, good move kind of thing. Like, we see Joe like have like some like one of those like lines on the jury where he's like, like you should have voted Ben out because he's just too good, and like this is what happens when you let good players stay in the game. And I think Joe and like people that were maybe like disliking towards Ben or angry at Ben will see that Ben has played a really good game and that kind of stuff. So like I feel like someone like Ben is still likable after the fact, after being voted out, whereas someone like Chrissy, it seems like Chrissy always has these like one-liners at tribal council where she's just like super annoying. And like when Ben said something this tribal, Chrissy was like, or when Ben did the explosion thing, Chrissy was like, oh, well, I don't think Ben should have done that. It was like really not that big of a deal. And I'm like, that's just annoying. Like, no, like I feel like Chrissy, if she's final 3, won't get that many votes, even though she has played a good game, versus someone like Ben who has played a good game, whereas maybe the jury likes him more. Because I feel like Chrissy is just more unlikable than Ben.
I feel like one of the things is Ben is willing to recognize when other people make good moves, whereas Chrissy kind of only talks about herself when it comes to good moves. Like she's always discounting other people's good moves, if that makes sense. Like if Chrissy had done the same thing, Ben would have been like, yeah, that was a great idol play. But then Chrissy, when Ben did it, was like, it's not that big of a deal, you know?
Yeah, and I think we saw that a few episodes ago when after Ben sort of blindsides the Chrissy Ryan alliance with voting with the Devin, Ashley, Lauren thing, Ben sort of brings light to the fact that Chrissy only likes the people that she's working with, and once you cross her, you're sort of on the shit list, and then she blackmails you or wants to get you out. And we see that this episode when I think Chrissy has a very alpha female problem where she wants to get rid of all the other girls in the season because I feel like maybe she feels insecure around other strong females. So she's like, okay, Ashley wanted me to go home, so now I want Ashley to go home. And with the whole Chrissy and Rourke thing that we saw at the beginning of the season, whenever Chrissy is put up against, maybe another smart female, Chrissy always wants to get that other girl out.
I think it's also interesting because it was totally just a revenge thing where Chrissy was going after Ashley because Ashley pointed out that Chrissy was the one making decisions, you know? And it's like, I think that Chrissy knew that Ben was objectively bigger of a threat, but her ego was wounded, you know?
Yeah, and I think we see that a lot with Chrissy when Chrissy was super mad at Ben for double crossing them. She's like, oh, I want to get Ben out now because he crossed me. I need to get back at him because it's revenge and I need to settle the score kind of thing. So I don't know. I feel like Chrissy and Ryan definitely, especially when they were voting the healers out, were very cocky about it. And we saw when they did get blindsided, when JP got voted out, then they sort of got put in their place, but now they're in sort of a safer place again. But I don't know. I feel like they just have very poor jury management. And if I were someone like Joe, or Mike, if Mike gets voted out, why would I want to give $1 million to someone like Chrissy or Ryan, who you've talked to days in, days out, to try to get to work with, to try to make a big move, and their whole reasoning behind not wanting to talk to you, not wanting to work with you is you weren't in our alliance. But you still don't have to treat other people like shit if they aren't in your alliance. You could still be good with them.
Yeah, I think also one of the things is I don't see Ryan winning this season just because he had such a strong start and comparatively he's kind of dropped off.
Yeah. I agree. We, in the beginning of the season, Alyssa and I were like, this is the Ryan show. He's sort of annoying kind of thing. And now I feel like Ryan, he doesn't really have that many confessionals. The reward challenge was interesting how they did it in pairs. Devin and Chrissy win, and then they pick Ryan to go with them. And then they have sort of a final 3 deal. But compared to the beginning of the season, yes, I think Ryan was sort of narrating a lot of episodes, whereas now he's sort of just there, okay, I didn't win the reward challenge, but I got to go on it. Final 3 deal, yeah.
Yeah, I also love how Ben was the only one who was like, I don't have a final 3 deal, because I feel like, again, everyone must know that if 5 people are promising final 3, then some of those people are lying.
And some people are left out. But
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I think none of them ever considered Ben might make it to the final 3, and then none of them considered that everyone else might be making other final 3 deals, which I think is just come on, guys, you know?
Yeah, I think it sort of goes to show as well how this season has been playing out. Sort of it's been a very stereotypical season, I think, to say the least. We've seen, older females go home first, you know, the annoying people go home first, then you move on to like the strong males kind of thing, go home. And, you know, a lot of idols have been misplayed, that kind of thing. And like in regards to strategy, it's like, okay, let's pagong the other tribe, blah, blah, blah. And I think, you know, that sort of shows like this season how like this level of gameplay seems to be, you know, lesser, I feel like, than we've seen in previous like all newbie seasons. But yeah, I don't know. I think Devin is set up really, really nicely because he had or has multiple Final Three deals after Ashley goes home. Maybe not so much, but I feel like Devin can make it to the Final Three whichever way he goes. If it's with like Mike and Ben, or if it's with Chrissy and Ryan.
Yeah. I think that the final three right now is either going to be Ben, Chrissy, Devin, or Mike, Ryan, Chrissy.
Oh, that'd be a really shitty Final Three if it's Mike, Ryan, and Chrissy. I'd be like, time to turn off the TV because I don't really want any of those people to win.
I don't think that Chrissy will win. I think that no matter what, she's going to find a way to the final three, but I don't think that she's going to win. And I also think that if Chrissy and Ryan got to choose who they were going to be with, they'd want to choose Mike because they know that there's a chance that both Devin and Ben could beat them.
I feel like if it were like, because I think Chrissy could win like the final immunity challenge if it does have a puzzle. Anything with puzzles, like just don't even run the challenge. Just let Chrissy win. We saw it this episode with the cog puzzle. Chrissy like dominated that. So I don't know. I think, you know, Chrissy, I feel like has a really good chance to get to the final three, whichever way happens, because I think she has probably the highest possibility of winning that final immunity challenge because she is so good at puzzles. And like if it has a puzzle, Chrissy's got the upper hand there. So I think Chrissy, final three. And I think, I don't know, I feel like I would want to see Ben in a final three because I think out of these five, Ben is the most deserving to make it to the end. But I really feel like Ben could be the first one to go home at the start of this episode, finishing fifth, because everyone realizes, you know, Ben is super is gonna win the game if you don't vote him out. So I feel like we could see Ben go home, and then from this episode, Chrissy sort of realizes that Mike, you know, is smart. She's like, Mike is smarter than we think, kind of thing. You know, we don't know who he's playing, and I think Mike would go home at 4, and then Chrissy, Ryan, Devin final 3, and I think Devin will win the game.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good prediction. The only thing is, I feel like they might do something like, you know, in Cambodia, they had that challenge that was like putting the balls down the spinny thing, and it went like spinny, 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 and then it went down one of two pipes. I think they might do like that. Cool. I think they might do that sort of challenge where it's not necessarily like purely physical, but it's also not like completing a puzzle either.
Okay, yeah, that would be good because then it definitely levels the playing field. Otherwise, Chrissy has an upper hand if it's anything puzzle related. And then I think like endurance related, we could see Devin win, you know, maybe an endurance challenge of like holding something or like putting your arm up or something like that. Because we see like when him and Ashley are there for a long time, that kind of thing. Yeah, Ryan is shit at everything, so he probably won't win. We haven't seen Ben win an immunity challenge yet, but I mean, he's strong. I feel like depending if he's having a good day and there's no puzzle and like it's a slingshot or something at the end, maybe Ben could win. Mike, I don't know. Mike's just sort of there.
I feel like Mike isn't going to win, but he's going to make, if he does get to the final tribal council, he'll make it more interesting by cracking a lot of jokes.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't see the two. I think envisioning the future on this Wednesday, I really could see Ben or Devin being the winners of Survivor Season 35. Everyone else, if Mike, Chrissy, or Ryan win, I feel like I'd sort of be disappointed with this season. I don't know. I don't really like necessarily want to see them win. I feel like they would be less deserving maybe. Then Ben definitely, and then recently I feel like we have seen Devin thinking and pick up his game, and I feel like Devin's just more likable than Chrissy and Ryan also.
Yeah, I feel like Devin also has the most solid like list of moves that he made, because I feel like a lot of what Christy and Ryan did is like earlier in the game, and it's easier to make a resume out of like moves that you made later in the game. And also just like you said, Devin is a lot more likable.
Yeah, and I think Devin, even though he is young, I feel like people should be able to look past that. I think Chrissy and Ryan, Devin, final three, Chrissy and Ryan sort of like negate each other in a way, because I feel like a lot of their moves were like both of them working together, one of them like thinking of it and the other going along with it. I think they are too like close, too similar. For one of them to win the game, because their games are so intertwined, and I feel like everyone sees like, okay, Chrissy and Ryan are super close, but I feel like if one of them wants to win, they sort of need to backstab their right hand person, because like if you go to the final tribal council with someone who's played the exact same game as you, from a viewer standpoint, I feel like Chrissy and Ryan just blend too much together for like their games to be solid and distinct. What Chrissy has over Ryan is that Chrissy has won individual immunities, but I feel like Chrissy has been more vocal at tribal councils and sort of more like rude and annoying. But yeah, Ryan doesn't have anything really separate from Chrissy on his plate, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing that Ryan could do would kind of be like Rob and Amber in All Stars, where like Rob was kind of like the bad cop and Amber was the good cop. Like Ryan might have some success and paint himself as the good cop, as like the quirky, funny guy who like had strategy stuff but wasn't like mean, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Ryan and Chrissy's moves, like you said, were a lot of like pre-merge, pre-jury moves, and I feel like sort of in the game of Survivor, you sort of don't really like list your pre-jury moves, unless it's like maybe the move right before the merge to set you up well or set you up in the majority for the merge. But I feel like your resume sort of starts after merge, after the jury starts, and it's sort of like, okay, you have to be a good Survivor player to even make it to the merge and the jury. So, like, what did you do after that to make you a great player deserving of the $1 million? Because, like, I feel like everyone at the beginning sort of like, there's too many people to distinctly like make something yours, unless it's like a super big idol player, something like that. But I feel like Ben and Devin definitely have a lot of stuff after the merge that they can sort of like tangible evidence of, like, this is me playing Survivor. This is me making moves. And like, this is why I deserve the title of Sole Survivor.
yeah, I think that also just I think it'll be interesting to see how this jury reacts, because while in the game, a lot of people seem to be playing like kind of on a personal level. Like Lauren was talking about how like, oh, Ben only wants to make this fake idol to embarrass Chrissy. Then I feel like they also both all really appreciate the game. So I'm kind of confused as to whether or not there'll be like a bitter jury, just because it did seem like a very personal game, but they also all seem to be like fans of the show.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see also next, or like this Wednesday, what this like secret advantage that Jeff Probst was talking about is in the preview, and also, I guess to see like what's happening if the jury is still going to be like the Socratic seminar style like we saw last season, which was super interesting, or if it's going to be like we've seen in Jury's Past, where one person just stands and talks.
I kind of am hoping for the Socratic seminar style, just because I feel like that will definitely like. I thought that it was good last time, but I also think that one of the things with the, like stand up and talk thing is that like if they address their questions only to one person, then like the GOAT or the third person like never really gets their chance to speak. And that can kind of change if they do the Socratic seminar because the third person can kind of like shove their way in.
Yeah, shove their way in. So I guess, yeah, winner prediction, Alyssa.
I'm gonna go Ben.
Okay, I'll say Devin. I'm fine with either Devin or Ben winning. I think if Ben, is able to make it past 2 votes to the final 3, or if it is a final 2 or whatever, if he's able to make it to final tribal, he definitely deserves the win. I feel like it's a very uphill battle for him right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think that I think it's always interesting to see like how those battles go, even if Ben does end up not getting there.
Yeah, so hopefully one of these things happen and we won't be all like pissed off in our next podcast if we see an upset this Wednesday. But yeah, hopefully we will see you guys at the end of the week with our finale podcast, since both Alyssa and I will be at home on winter break. So it'll be very exciting.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Yay!
Bye.